All right, let's jump right in. Welcome back to this explainer where today we're dissecting the actual anatomy of business growth. But look, we are not doing the usual hustle culture hype here. No, we're treating business growth with the exact gravity, the precision, and quite frankly, the hyper-realistic stakes of engineering a massive skyscraper. Because let's be real, when you strip away all the startup buzzwords, scaling a company is literally just an act of structural engineering. If you build too high, way too fast, and your foundation is weak, the physics will absolutely catch up with you. So today, we are unpacking the architect's blueprint for sustainable scaling.
You see, there's this incredibly common and honestly dangerous illusion out there that scaling just means taking on more clients, right? For so many founders, that's the holy grail. They think scaling simply means opening the floodgates and letting the revenue pour in. But true scaling, it's not just about customer acquisition. It's about rigorously, and I mean absolutely rigorously, ensuring that your systems, your culture, and your leadership are fully prepped to bear the immense, crushing weight of all that new business. If you just take on clients without doing that background prep, you aren't actually scaling. You're really just adding weight to a fragile structure.
So how do we actually pour that concrete? How do we prepare the foundation? Well, the source material breaks it down into these 5 preparatory steps. And I want you to think of these not just as a casual to-do list, but as the 5 absolutely critical structural pillars that you need to hold up the massive weight of your business as it expands. We're talking about identifying bottlenecks, strengthening leadership, documenting your SOPs, carefully planning your marketing, and setting realistic goals. Seriously, if even one of these pillars is compromised, the whole building is at risk. Let's break down how we reinforce each one.
Starting with Pillar 1. Operations, identifying structural bottlenecks.
The big takeaway here is finding those operational bottlenecks before the pressure starts building. It helps to think about these bottlenecks as hidden stress fractures in a building's foundation. Right now, with your current client load, your business is probably holding up fine. The cracks are tiny. You probably don't even notice them on a Tuesday afternoon. But what happens if you just go and drop 50 stories of new clients right on top of those tiny cracks? Well, the pressure multiplies, the fractures splinter, and boom, the structure collapses. You've got to run those stress tests on your operations today. Ask yourself, where does communication break down? Which piece of software is always lagging? Who on the team is constantly overwhelmed? Find those fractures and fill them with concrete before you even think about adding another floor.
Moving on to Pillar 2, fortifying leadership, strengthening the load-bearing walls.
This is where we must strengthen leadership and delegation. When a business is small, the founder is basically the central pillar holding up the entire roof. We've all been there. But a single human being, no matter how ridiculously talented they are, can only bear so much weight. You literally cannot hold up a skyscraper by yourself. Delegating and really strengthening your leadership team isn't just a nice-to-have, it is a matter of absolute structural necessity. You are essentially installing new load-bearing walls. You have to train your managers, give them actual authority, and trust them to hold the weight of their own departments. Because if you don't delegate, you become the primary bottleneck, and for sure, you will eventually crack under that pressure.
Next up is Pillar 3, documenting for reinforcement, creating the operational blueprint.
Okay, I get it. The term SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, sounds incredibly dry. A lot of people just write it off as corporate busywork. But in reality, an SOP is a system of preparation. It's documented structural reinforcement for your new hires. Just imagine, for a second, bringing a brand new construction crew onto a massive build site and just not handing them a blueprint. It would be total chaos, right? A complete disaster. Well, SOPs are the blueprints that allow those new crew members to seamlessly integrate into your business. It lets them bear their portion of that expanded weight without making catastrophic errors. They guarantee that no matter who is doing the job, it gets done to the exact structural specifications you need.
That brings us to Pillar 4, aligning acquisition, controlling the intake.
So you absolutely need a highly strategic plan for your marketing and client acquisition. Remember how we established earlier that just getting more clients isn't the whole game? Well, now that we've reinforced the internal structure, our client acquisition strategy has to be meticulously planned so the intake rate perfectly matches that newly fortified operational capacity. If your marketing team suddenly pumps, say, thousands of new leads into a system that was only reinforced to handle a few hundred, you're going to overwhelm the structure. It's that simple. That marketing valve has to be turned at the exact same pace that your operational capacity is actually expanding.
And finally, Pillar 5, setting structural limits, defining realistic goals. Look, scaling requires a mathematical reality check. Setting realistic revenue and staffing goals ensures you don't try to build a 100-story building when your budget only allows for 10 stories worth of steel and concrete. right? By setting strict, highly realistic goals for exactly how much money is coming in and exactly how many hands you need on deck to manage the work, you ensure you have the exact resources required for the next phase of construction. It grounds all your ambition in hard, hyper-realistic metrics.
Now, let's look at the coaching insight, the verdict on scaling.
Scaling without systems equals chaos. This isn't just a suggestion, it is basically an absolute rule of physics in the business world. The math here is entirely non-negotiable. If you try to force growth without doing the grueling, frankly unglamorous engineering work of building out your systems, identifying those bottlenecks, and training your leadership, you are guaranteeing an operational disaster. The weight is simply going to be too much, and the resulting chaos will tear your company apart from the inside out.
As a leader, you are faced with a stark, binary choice. Approach 1, you scale without systems, and the outcome is chaos, burnout, and eventually collapse. Or, approach 2, you scale with preparation, and the outcome is sustainable growth. You really have to choose right now whether you want to blindly invite chaos by chasing that top-line revenue, or if you're actually willing to actively, patiently engineer a structure that can sustain your ambition over the long haul.
Which leaves us with a final, absolutely critical question. Are your systems, your culture, and your leadership truly ready for the weight of scale? Before you go and launch that next massive marketing campaign, before you sign a dozen new clients, I want you to take a hard, hyper-realistic look at your architectural blueprint. Stress test your operations. Double-check those load-bearing walls, because the weight is coming, and you need to know without a shadow of a doubt that your foundation is actually going to hold. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, go run those stress tests today.